But today we've got Amy, who has been our very, very loving and doting carer of our birds. She's got such incredible passion for all the individuals that we have. As a conservation organization, we're interested in populations of birds and reducing the risk of extinction. But when we're at the breeding center, the careful management of the individuals is what makes it possible for us to look after those birds properly and help them to be productive so they produce babies that, like scarlet macaws, that we've released back into the wild or into the wild as a new, and that we're working very hard at getting organized for the great green macaw reintroduction as well. Well, I don't want to say any more, and I'm looking forward to hearing Amy and stories of all the characters of the birds at the center there. So I'm going to hand over to Amy, and I think we can do. I don't know if there might be some natural breaks in your presentation, Amy, when we can take some questions, or we can just hold off to the end. I'll let you lead that way. If you want to stop at some moment and say, "Is there any questions so far?" then we can open it up there, and it'd be nice to get engagement. So over to you.
Very good. Hi, everybody. And thank you, Sam, for that introduction. And thank you all for joining. It's a pleasure to share what we do in Islita with all of you. And I'm really excited to share this presentation that we put together. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, so just a little bit more about me. So like Sam said, my name is Amy Clark, and I joined the MRN team in 2022 after graduating from Purdue University. And I started as a volunteer field biologist. And so while I was working as a field biologist, I fell absolutely in love with the captive flock and all of their unique personalities and their antics and their preferences. And I discovered I have a huge passion for aviculture and chick rearing. And so that led me to apply for the role as assistant bird manager and later bird manager. And through my work in Islita, I've had the privilege of participating in species reintroduction, in preparing macaws for reintroduction and liberation. And then I've also gotten to rear some scarlet macaws and great green macaw chicks. And it's hard to pick a favorite part, but maybe my favorite part is working with the volunteers and supporters from all over the world. It's incredible to share different cultures, all while working towards the same goal of supporting wild parrots. So that brings us to our mission at the Breeding Center. So our mission is to cultivate a thriving parrot flock and produce healthy, genetically diverse scarlet and great green macaw chicks for reintroduction in Costa Rica. Now, this does mean that we provide our flock with everything they need to be healthy, comfortable, and well adapted, all while allowing them to express their natural behaviors that they would be exhibiting in the wild. And that can be a challenge sometimes. So we achieve this through providing environmental enrichment, a balanced diet and proper nutrition, strong biosecurity and safety measures, health monitoring and veterinary care, and social enrichment and nesting opportunities. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into each of these factors. So one of my favorite things to do is daily environmental enrichment. So this is crucial for the flock's mental and physical health. So as we're building these toys, we want to engage all of the bird's 5 senses. So each toy is designed to stimulate a natural behavior that they would perform in the wild. For example, that could be foraging or chewing or playing and bonding with their flock mates, or all 3 of these things at once. However, given the intelligence of the macaws and all of their unique preferences and personalities, we keep a detailed journal of which types of enrichment our macaws like the most. So every day the enrichment has to be a little bit different, but we need to know which enrichment our macaws will engage with the most. So over on the right here, you can see 2 of our past volunteers that were doing some woodworking, so building ladders and special boxes for foraging. And then on the left, you can see one of our birds playing with a coconut hanger and some bamboo. So we try to use a lot of natural materials for them. And then here's some other examples of enrichment that we use. So on the left here, you can see one of our pre-release birds using a log. And here we're trying to stimulate them to investigate natural tree cavities. And that's a skill that they're going to need once they're released. So they start investigating nest cavities within trees. And then in the center, you can see an enrichment toy that has Corral seed pods on it. This is also an enrichment, but also a training tool because then they start to learn how to process wild foods. And then on the right, you can see two of our breeding birds playing with hibiscus flowers. That's always a hit. The birds love flowers and specifically hibiscus. This is one of my favorite photos. Here we have two of our great greens that we're just enjoying our sprinkler system. So our great greens especially, they're adapted to a rainy tropical rainforest. And so in Islita, we have a dry tropical rainforest. So during the dry season, we like to give them long showers and oof, it's very fun to watch. They love to play in the water, especially these two. They get absolutely drenched. Another important factor for us is the diet and nutrition. So our flock's diet is specifically curated to each bird's life stage, activity level, and in some cases, and a lot of cases, their individual preferences. Just like us, macaws can be really picky eaters. And our macaws, they receive 2 meals every day filled with fresh fruit, vegetables, legumes, nuts, and seeds. So on the right here, you can see our daily chop. We have papaya, coconut, cucumber, green bean, carrot, lots of different things in there. And then we also incorporate seasonal wild fruits, vegetables, and seeds that grow right here in Islita. So on the left, you can see some star fruit and some kaimito. Now, you can probably imagine as we're preparing these fruits and we're cutting them, it's pretty hard not to take a handful myself and try it. And I would love to take a moment here to hear some of your favorite fruits and vegetables. And if you want to put them in the chat, I can tell you whether they have the Macaw stamp of approval or whether our more picky eaters turn their beaks away. So if you want to throw some ideas into the chat of what your favorite fruits and vegetables are, let me know. Let's see here. Broccoli. Mixed bag with broccoli. The youngsters love broccoli. They like to more shred it than eat it, of course. Strawberries and bananas are a hit, especially bananas. Bananas are a daily staple. In fact, I use bananas to hide some of the yucky stuff, so our vitamins and minerals get hidden in a cookie of oats and banana and some like wheat germ, and that's where I hide the supplements that they don't want to eat. I've never tried pomegranate seeds, but I can imagine that would be a hit. All right. I'll give another couple minutes here if anybody has any favorite fruits and vegetables that you're curious about. I will say carrots, no. We try and try with carrots. My latest invention is putting the carrots in the cookie with the bananas, and that they'll eat the carrots then. But for some reason, our birds hate carrots. Yes, grapes are huge. Grapes are like a special reward. And sometimes we do make baked foods for them, especially if we have a surplus of bananas and plantains, or someone has brought us bananas and plantains, because they go bad quickly, right? We need to preserve them. We put all of those ingredients with some oats and, maybe some chia and some flax, and we make baked cookies as well. So those are also a huge hit. And citrus. We do a little bit of daily citrus. and especially oranges. Yes, they love that. So I'm also going to show you here. I'm super excited to show you our brand new bird kitchen. So this year we moved all of our equipment over to a container kitchen that's dedicated specifically for birds. So this has helped us increase our food safety and our biosecurity from food contamination and things like that. So this is Caro, one of our current interns. She's working on that chop. She's cutting up sweet potato for the birds in that photo. And like I mentioned, biosecurity is very, very important. It's a key part of our daily routine.
Can you
Yes.
can you go back to the bowls and tell us what all those bowls are?
Yes, absolutely. So this it might look like organized chaos, and maybe it is. But every aviary has its own map and bowls that go to each aviary, and we carry them down in these carts, which you can see right here. So these are where the diets get split up into specific categories. So we have birds that need a maintenance diet, birds that need a breeding bird diet, birds that need a pre-release diet. And with these maps here and with these bowls, that's how we sort everything out. So our volunteers are troopers. Each volunteer learns how to do this and how to work in the kitchen. And it's a feat, I would say. So So yes, for our daily routine, we do a lot of cleaning. Cleaning is the name of the game. So we do this to help protect our birds from diseases, pests, and predators. So we clean the aviaries twice a day, and we do a full deep clean each week to keep their environment both safe and sanitary. We also check aviary structures daily, and we patrol our site for predators like boas, big cats, anything that we think could be a danger to our birds. And to add a whole other layer of protection, we use a sulfur-based repellent around each enclosure to help deter large cats and snakes. Now, what happens if we find a boa like this one in the picture? Well, when we find them, we safely relocate them a few miles away. And if it's an animal like a big cat, we will scare them away. And we patrol the site daily to kind of put our scent around the site so they're less likely to come on. And then that sulfur-based repellent is very it's not a nice smell for the snakes and big cats, so it does a good job of keeping them far away from the site and covering up the smells of our birds and chicks. This boa was none too happy. I look pretty thrilled in this picture, but I was not. I am not a snake person. So we also closely monitor each macaw's daily behavior, and we note and record any deviations from the norm. So every day we go over with our volunteers over every bird. And if we saw anything like they didn't come down to eat today, or this bird was really fluffed up, or this bird was on a lower perch than normal, those are all things that we note and monitor daily. We work alongside our veterinarian, Dr. Ricardo Jimenez, and he's on the left here. And we conduct routine health screenings, parasite prevention, and we provide first aid in the case of any injuries or accidents. And so on our site, we have a small clinic that's equipped with essential supplies, including chick incubators, first aid materials, oxygen tanks, and some basic diagnostic equipment. And that's actually where I am right now, is in our bird clinic. So sometimes we spend a lot of time in here, especially when we have chicks, and we'll talk about some of the challenges that we have during the breeding season a little bit later. And then another factor is social enrichment and nesting opportunities. So macaws, they're highly social animals, and regular interaction with their flock is essential for their well-being and their physical and mental health. So our reproductive flocks, they're housed in social aviaries during the non-breeding season. And then this allows them to form new pairs or strengthen their already existing pairs. And they can engage in their natural flocking behaviors outside of the breeding season. Then, once our breeding season begins, established pairs are moved to their dedicated honeymoon suites. And this is where they're going to be provided with nest boxes and specialized diets that are going to support their successful reproduction. And then this brings me to another interesting question for you all. When a macaw is looking for a new mate, when they're searching for a new partner, what qualities do you think that the birds look for in each other, and what qualities do you think we look for in the birds when we're forming new pairs? So for our bachelors and bachelorettes, if you will, if you want to put in the chat, what qualities you think make a good pair? Let's see, let me open up the chat here. Certainly a big quality is personality compatibility, just like people. Definitely bold and curious. If they are, sometimes I've noticed, you can have two bold and curious individuals that will find each other. And sometimes you might have one bird that's very curious and very energetic, and one that's more relaxed, and they also do well together. And then we have the physical attributes. Yes, so they're looking at how bright are this eligible partner's colors, how's their feather quality, do they have long tails, do they have signs of good health? And that's why the diet is so important, and the physical enrichment and those toys, because all of those things come together to make high quality, healthy birds, and then they feel comfortable breeding. They do have some courtship rituals. I would say one of the most interesting things I've ever seen them do. I saw one male repeatedly bring a female sticks and rocks, only for the female to throw them away and then wait for the next thing. And the male would bring her another thing, and she'd look at it and throw it away. And this went on for days until they started copulating and egg laying. So each pair is a little bit different. And some of these birds, they've been together for a long time. So I think that they keep it interesting by getting these interesting behaviors like that. It's each pair does a little bit different of a courtship ritual. And then, yes, so age is an interesting qualification. Usually for our birds, they need to be at least 4, more like 5, 6, 7 years old before they form that pair and before they start attempting to reproduce. So age is a very big factor. And then the males and the females, actually, it's very hard to tell them apart from one another. They have the identical plumage and size. So really the only way we can tell the males from the females is doing genetic testing. So yes, I would say these are all good factors and qualities that they look for in each other. And then what we look for as we're playing matchmaker, if you will, is if this bird and this bird, they both are very dominant birds. Those two birds could make a very good power couple, or they might really not like each other because they both have strong personalities. And so that's what our social aviaries allow us to do, is put birds together in the flocking season and allow them to use the enrichment, have social enrichment, and then we start to see them form pairs and break off. Once they're in the established pairs and they've picked their partner, then we're going to move them into that honeymoon suite in the breeding season. And that's when the courtship rituals will begin. And then we'll start to see egg laying. So after just 5 days, you can candle the eggs after they've been laid, and you should start to see some developing embryos. And so here you can see that the vascular system is starting to develop after 5 days, and it looks like a spider web. And this is where the embryo on the inside is starting to absorb the nutrients from the yolk. And so after incubation starts, over the next 28 days, the embryo will keep developing until we have a chick. So again, those reproductive pairs, they move into their honeymoon suites, they begin courtship and egg laying, and then the eggs are incubated for about 28 days. Typically, pairs lay between 2 to 4 eggs at a time. That's usually their normal clutch size. And then once the chicks hatch, they remain inside of the nest for 12 to 15 weeks before fledging. After they've fledged, young birds typically stay with their parents for an additional 3 to 6 months. It just really depends on their development and how fast they're weaned, and sometimes how fast it takes the parents to get a little bit annoyed with the chick. Sometimes they tell us, hey, we're ready. We're ready for this chick to get out of our hair. So in this guy, he in this photo was just born. So this is a chick that's just a few hours old. So then these chicks over those 12 to 15 weeks, they grow exponentially. So on the left, this chick has about 2 days old. And then going towards the center, this guy is at about 2 months. And then finally at the end here, this is a chick that is between 12 to 15 weeks, and he should be fledging from the nest at any point. So it's very, if you blink, you'll miss it as these chicks grow up. And then from fledging to reintroduction, after fledging and the chicks have been fully weaned, they move into a social pre-release aviary. And that's where they integrate with juveniles from other families. Once these birds acclimate and form strong social bonds with the other fledglings in the aviary, we will then begin the reintroduction training. So this includes flight conditioning to build strong pectoral muscles for flight, human aversion training to reduce the risks of poaching and human-wildlife conflict, foraging practice and processing of natural food sources like those corral seed pods that we saw, and predator awareness and avoidance training. So now I have a special inside look at one of our pairs from this year, Paul and Rio, and their chicks from this season. So they hatched 2 chicks, one on March 8th and one on March 10th. And these 2 chicks are already over 500 grams, which is almost half of their adult weight. So the next slide, I'm going to show you a quick video of us doing a chick check and all the things that we look for and what are the markers of a healthy chick. Let's see here. So first, we're going to do a preliminary look, and we're just going to see if the chicks are relaxed, if there's any pests, and if they're showing signs of the nest box being too hot. And they looked pretty good. So then we pull them out of the nest, and we're going to weigh them first. So in this video, I pull out the biggest chick first. So this was a chick that was born on March 8th. And I took this video yesterday, so this is very current. And then I'm just recording the weight of that second chick. And we have to be very delicate with these guys because they are very fragile. And so the first thing I start doing is I go over their body. I start with the wings, and I'm looking at the incoming feathers to make sure that there's no impacted feathers. I check underneath the wings to see signs of pests or any kind of mites, anything like that. And then here I'm checking the crop to make sure the crop consistency is correct. They haven't been fed anything they shouldn't. I check the mouth for any foreign bodies, and I also check the nose, eyes, and ears for any foreign bodies or pests. Sometimes in this area, we can get botflies. So any kind of, especially the ears and the feathers, we're looking for that so we can get them out as soon as possible. And I turn the chick and I'm doing the exact same thing on the other side. So checking the underarm and the wing to make sure all the feathers are coming in correctly. And then we're going to go over the body because once they get feathers, you can't always see insect bites or cuts or things like that. So you need to feel the chick. And then I check the vent and the rump to make sure that there's no discoloration. And last but not least, I also check the belly. I want to make sure there's no signs of hernias. It's quite a big belly. I check for signs of hernias and any signs of infection in the umbilicus area. And there he goes. And we're going to do the exact same thing for the second chick. Chick number one, you can see, is just now starting to get in all of his feathers. And so another thing I'm looking for when I put them flat on the table is their stance. Are their legs splayed? Are they standing correctly? Are they walking? This one is definitely walking. This one is very active, which I love to see. So I'm doing the same thing, checking the underarms, the feathers, the incoming plumage. He had a very big crop, so that's great. I know he's getting fed. And then I'm checking the mouth again for foreign bodies. Sometimes they can get, just like babies, they can get a little bit of candida in their mouths. So we make sure that there's no yeast infections. I'm going to turn them around and do the same thing. He was not happy with me shielding the sun from his eyes. This one is definitely a feisty younger sibling. And again, just feeling the whole body to make sure there's no lumps or bumps or cuts, anything that we need to examine. And checking the rump. And again, checking his little pot belly. And he looked very good. Paul and Rio, their parents are spectacular parents and they take great care of their chicks. And they are known to have pretty chunky chicks. They keep them well fed. By this point, they were ready to go back into their nest. And then there they are after we've put them back. And that is what we do for our chick chicks. So as I mentioned, the breeding season can bring some pretty unique challenges. And we were just talking about some of the things that we look at. So what happens if they're splay-legged? What happens if they do have a candida infection? Well, during our weekly chick checks like that one, which we do 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we closely monitor both the eggs and the chicks for any of those signs of illness or deformities or pests. And this approach allows us to provide the timely care and intervention that struggling chicks need, and it increases their chance of survival and supports the release of more chicks into the wild. So these guys, when they have an issue, they have a little more support than their wild counterparts because they were born in our center. So, for example, this great green here, this great green had trouble with his legs splaying, and he actually had trouble developing the muscles in his legs. So in this case, what we did was we gave him some special nutrition, so calcium, phosphorus, vitamin D, and a lot of extra protein and extra supplementary feeding. And we created this little contraption here to help him gradually put weight onto his feet. So it wasn't all at once. With this swing, we could do daily incremental, a little more weight, a little more weight, a little more weight. And we would give him toys so he could practice using his feet. And after 2 months of this therapy, once he fledged the nest, he's able to use his feet, walk, stand, perch, do everything that a normal chick should be doing. He did just need an extra boost to get to that point. And then this scarlet chick here, this is a chick that was displaying some splayed leg. And what that means is their stance isn't perfect like this, right? Where he's standing with his feet directly under him. they stand with their feet out, and it has forces them down flat on the bottom of their nest. So we need to train their legs to go underneath them so they can support their own weight. So that's what we're doing here with actually an elastic hairband, and just a small piece of cardboard as a spacer. And we did this a couple hours every day, keeping him right here in the clinic in a warm, calm incubator. And within a few weeks, because they grow exponentially, we can correct these deformities because they'll grow out of them with slight corrections and the right nutrition. And so these are, of course, some of these things we do on the fly. So that's another part of this job that I love, is being resourceful and problem solving, because sometimes we have a chick like this and we have to think on our feet of, all right, how are we going to get his legs to where they need to be? And so I love working with our team and coming up with ideas. And in the end, we come up with things like this that are simple but effective. And then another thing that tends to happen is when we have eggs in the nest, sometimes the eggs roll into one another when the parents are moving around in the nest. And when the eggs roll into one another, they can crack. And that's dangerous because it messes with the transpiration of gases within the egg. So it makes it throws off the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide that go in and out of the egg. And it also messes with the humidity inside the egg. And then obviously a crack, right? That's a great place for bacteria to come in. So when we have a crack in the egg, we use, funny enough, Elmer's glue or school glue that's water soluble. And so in this photo, I'm just lightly going along a cracked egg with a Q-tip and a little bit of Elmer's glue. And then we'll place that egg back into the nest and make sure that it keeps developing correctly. And right before the chick hatches, we'll take just a little bit of water and we'll take the glue off again. And so it's really interesting. Sometimes the tools we use are simple household things and they're really effective. So those are just a few examples of the challenges we face just during the breeding season. But it is a lot of fun, especially when it's a success story and we have birds that are able to make it out of that challenge. And then I wanted to give a shout out to our volunteers. Our work at the Captive Breeding Center is made possible by dedicated volunteers who join our mission from all over the world. And together we collaborate with people from diverse backgrounds and professions to provide high quality care for our flock and to support our goal of reintroducing scarlet and great green macaws into Costa Rica's forest. Here we have some volunteers. On this top photo here, we are collecting beech almond branches that were cut down. So sometimes when we see people that have cut down a tree nearby, we'll go and we'll collect as many branches as we can, and then we'll put those in the aviary for that environmental enrichment. We also go into the community and do work like beach cleanups. And this photo in the middle here, we had just done a beach cleanup and we got almost 40 pounds of trash that day off the beach. So that was a very cool day for us. And then here's some of our current volunteers on the bottom. Aaron and Chiara, they are from Australia. And their favorite thing to do is environmental enrichment as well. So with that, I'd like to say again, thank you so much for joining us. And it's a pleasure to share a little bit of what we do. And then, yeah, I'd love to open it up for questions. And Sam, I don't know if you want to moderate some questions, but yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. There are a couple on the chat, so while other people are either raise your hand if you're on video or put something in the chat. But we'll get started with do they have a mating dance or ritual?
Yes, it is quite funny. Sometimes they'll get very close to each other and they'll start preening, and they'll preen from the tops of their heads all the way to their rump. And the preening can go on for days as part of the courtship ritual. When they're friends, usually they do some light preening, but when they're a breeding pair, the preening is extensive. So that's a clear sign that, oh, there's some courtship going on.
There's no set dance though, like grebes or albatrosses, because they're not kind of separated and coming back together again, are they? But they're just really intensely, what's it? Show of public affection or public show of affection is that kind of thing. There's lots of that.
Yes.
Very good. There's another one here which I might add to as well. Are the males brighter in color?
Yeah, so the male and female visually appear the same. And really the only way we can tell the difference is through that genetic testing.
Okay, I'm going to add to this because I think this is fascinating. We don't fully understand the whole spectrum of light that the birds can see. They can also see ultraviolet light, and there has been some study with budgerigars in Australia that showed males had more UV reflectant colours than the females did. So to our eyes, they look the same, but to them, maybe less so. But there is an interesting thing as well, where sexually monomorphic species, so most parrots, not many parrots, the male and the female look the same, and that reflects the fact that they're both equally committed in investing to raise the children. The opposite of that is the peacock. That's the classic example where the male is all show, and he has to be because of that. All he gives the female is his genes, his sperm, and she has to pick the very best male. So, and the way that she can pick that is by his physical display of fitness. So males and females in those species look very different, and they're sexually dimorphic. Anyway, that's my little distraction. Okay, we've got some more. I'm going to work backwards now. How many times do they have eggs? Uh, the rainy season or dry season relate to breeding time? Does the rainy season? Yeah.
Yes, so that's an interesting question. So they usually have they should have one successful clutch during their breeding season, which goes from about December, January to May, I would say. And so during that time, it starts in the dry season and then it transitions into the wet season. And usually, what I've seen is it correlates a little bit with food availability. And by the time the chicks fledge, there should be lots of available food. And that's when the parents start teaching the chicks on what to eat. Now that's in the wild, but in captivity, we also try to mimic these seasons. However, if the parents have a first clutch and it's unsuccessful, the eggs don't develop, they can have another clutch. And usually they will keep laying eggs in groups of 2 to 4 until they have a successful clutch.
In the wild, I would say that they generally won't recycle and go again. Um, Parrots are very long-lived species that might live for 50 years in the wild, and during that time, they really only have to replace themselves to maintain a population. So they're kind of set up to fail. They've got lots of time, and what I've seen is that they'll just not bother. They'll just go, we'll just go next year and try again. So that's that, my little chip in there. Okay, an interesting one. How do you teach human and predator avoidance? Because that's a tricky one.
Yes, and if I had to say what my least favorite job is, it's probably that one. But it's very necessary. So in that, we kind of combine human aversion with flight training. So we will go into their pre-release aviaries that are much, much bigger and built for flight. And we will wear disguises like maybe like a camouflage suit, hats, anything that we think may someone may be wearing when they're poaching birds or potentially poaching birds. And we'll take nets and we'll chase the birds, right? Chase the birds with nets. And we're not actually catching them, but we're just stimulating them to do flight. And it's very scary. And it starts to show them like, ooh, okay, humans are not safe. They're not safe for us, and we need to be alert whenever they're inside the aviaries. And then we also do some training where we'll have new people. So, there we go. Perfect. We'll have new volunteers go into our aviaries with a can that has some rocks and coins in it, and we'll have them present something to the birds, like a really yummy piece of coconut or a high value food. And if a bird comes close to them, or even it comes down very close to that volunteer, well, they'll take that can and they'll shake it and make a lot of noise. And that's been very effective in making them associate humans with danger, which is what we want. So we reduce the human wildlife conflict once they're in the wild. And then for predator aversion training, we actually have some tools like fake snakes that we will put in the aviaries and hide. And then when the birds are distracted, we'll pull the snake out in with some fishing twine and mimic the like what a snake they would see a snake in the wild, and that creates some panic. And then we also, in that photo where I had the live boa, when we have, for example, our veterinarian, and if we have the chance, or we have our site manager who's very comfortable with handling snakes, we may actually take the snake into the aviary and show it to the birds while playing alarm calls. So I record the birds whenever they're doing alarm calls. So I have for both species different calls that signal to them, ooh, danger, danger, danger. So they see that snake, they're afraid of us as people, and then they hear the sounds of, the alarm call, and it backs up like this is a predator and we need to be afraid. So those are a few of the tactics we use.
Yeah. I think my dog has been used as well at some point. Pat was taken into the aviary, and there's a version association there. Um, I think that one of the key things to remember here is that wild animals are Olympians, and anything less, and they'll be eaten by something else. So it's really it's in their interest that we are giving, that they're fit and healthy, and very, very cautious around people. Okay, are the adults released into the wild? And then second question, do they fly away or hang out at the center?
Yes, so the we release them anywhere between, 1 to 2 years and beyond, depending on their behavior. So when we're doing pre-release training, we use behavioral ethograms, and we're going to assess the behavior of both individuals and the flock as a whole, and to see if they meet our release standards. So are they Olympians? Are they ready to be in the wild? So as if they meet those criteria, then they can be released. A good number of the birds fly away and start dispersing. When you are in Islita and you go to the surrounding towns, every year we're starting to see the birds going a little bit farther. So it may take some time where in the beginning they hang around our site, but as they get more comfortable, they start to disperse. And as we release more birds, they have to disperse also to find more resources to exploit in the surrounding towns.
Great. I think it's been very interesting to see how little they do disperse, how long it takes them, because macaws in the wild have been tracked flying 70 kilometers, um, but the release birds are very slow to move out from the center. And that's actually kind of a good thing because we want them to be able to return to the center and to use the feeders. And just actually to shout out that we've got live webcams on the feeders. If you're not aware of this, check out, excuse me, check out explore.org. Maybe Kerry, you could drop a link in the chat.
Already
But
did.
we've got live webcams, and we've also got one on the wild great green macaw nest as well. And actually, the other day I left it running in the background, and then I was listening. I was hearing these birds, and I was like, I'm in Canada right now, and I was like, how on earth am I hearing this bird? I'd forgotten I had the webcam open. It's very cool. And anyway, the feeders are a critical part of the reintroduction strategy, where the birds are super intelligent, as Amy has said, and they build up a mental map of the local area, and that's how they survive. And we can't just chuck them out and hope for the best because they need that safety net. So the feeders are very important. Okay, that was that one. Where do they build a nest? Are they in specific trees or in any tropical tree?
So for us, they don't build their nest. They search for natural cavities in trees. And around here, sometimes they even find dead palm trees. But ideally, they would find a nest cavity that's in a tree like a Guanacaste tree, for example. And where they don't build the nest itself, they do some remodeling where they'll go find a cavity and they'll make it their own. They'll, chew around the hole and kind of play a little bit of homemaker before they start doing the courtship and the egg laying.
Yeah. And with the great green macaw there, about 9 out of 10 nests are in the mountain almond trees, these huge trees that are 180 feet tall and they tower above the rainforest canopy. They're amazing individuals in their own right. And these trees have got to be ancient. They've got to be hundreds of years old, I believe, in order to make a cavity that's big enough for a macaw to go in. Because typically it's like a limb has fallen off the tree and then that's rotted back and formed the cavity. So these are, decades in the making, I think, if not centuries. So yeah. Okay. I think that's all the questions we've got. Any last questions? We've got a minute. If you pop up with a question, let me know. Okay, we've got a question. And I'm going to encourage everybody else to say their last questions. Um, so, are there enough trees with cavities in the area so that you don't need to provide artificial nest boxes?
That's a very interesting question. There are a lot of trees in the area that have tree cavities that the birds are not using, but we do provide artificial nest boxes in the area, especially in trees where we see a lot of flocking, where it's a high traffic area, and so we know that they will find that box and then they will use it. Also, a lot of our birds, right, they were born in an artificial nest box. So the first generation, they recognize those boxes. So we do use them. But there's quite a lot of tree cavities in the area that aren't used yet for whatever reason, if there's something that's already inhabiting that nest. But I think it's a matter of, in our area, of the birds gaining comfort and exploring the nests that are available.
Great. Yeah. And I think there's one of the things with nest boxes is we can manage the birds easier in a nest box. And in other cases, it's not really the case for our birds in Costa Rica, but nest boxes can be more easily protected from predators if need be and things like that. So that there can be an important role for nest boxes. Okay, I think that's it for. Oh no, we have another question. How many volunteers do you have at a time, and how long do they stay?
Yes, so at one time we can have up to 10 volunteers. And let's see, is there a cost for volunteers? There's no cost to volunteer here. And we accept volunteers from all different ages and walks of life and professions. And usually at one time, volunteers stay between 1 month to about 6 months.
Yeah, and that's just in Punta Islita. We also take volunteers over in the rainforest where we're doing more habitat restoration work as well. And we don't charge anything for volunteering. There's programs that do that. We don't like to do that, but volunteers don't have any expenses other than their food. So they get their own food, but in terms of accommodation, I mean it's basic accommodation, but there's accommodation. It's pretty good compared to the stuff what I did when I was. I sound old if I start saying like that. Um, Anyway, yeah, we there is stuff, and there's lots more information on our website if that's of interest to people. Um, we've got a question: are there other macaw centers in Costa Rica? Um, I'll let you go, Amy.
Yes, there's quite a few centers, whether that be captive breeding centers for reintroduction and rescue centers. Um, I believe we are one of the few centers that does great greens, though.
Yeah, I think there's only two other large facilities that are looking after great greens, and that's Natua and Rescate. Okay, we're we've got thank yous. Thank you for your gratitude and your appreciation, and congrats to Amy for all the great presentation and pictures. And I see that Kerry has put in a nice chat here where it's Amy's incredible work is made possible thanks to your support. So there's a donation link there. We always appreciate your support. I've got two last questions for you, and that is put something on the chat if there's any surprises, some things that you were not aware of. We'd really like to know from your perspective how you see our work and what bits are kind of exciting and you didn't realize, and maybe we should talk more about those things in the future, or things, yeah, any surprises from today's presentation. And then lastly, we're looking to do more of these webinars. We think it's a wonderful way to engage all of the team, because we think of you guys as part of the team and we're part of your team in achieving conservation together. And we'd like to know what kind of topics you want to hear about. We're aiming to do more of these webinars. We've done webinars on our habitat work. And are there any particular areas of our work you'd especially like to know more about? And so put any of those sort of suggestions on the chat, and we'd really appreciate it, and it can help us make sure we're doing presenting stuff that you're interested in. And so lastly, I just want to say a huge thank you to Amy for all of your work and your dedication, and for doing a wonderful presentation today with lots of really nice pictures. Some of those new for me, and they're lovely to see. So thank you very much, and thanks everyone for joining.